Man, I'm digging that intro. Welcome. Hello, everyone. This is episode number 4 of the Riverfront Bengals show, where we discussed, yes, you guessed it, the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll most likely complain about their offensive line a little bit. I am your host, Nate Dotson, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Joe Farfsing. How the heck are you, Joe?
I am doing fine and dandy. Nate, what about yourself, bud?
Man, I'm doing well. You're looking good in those glasses over there. It's a
I
beautiful
feel
day in
astute.
this neck of the woods.
Yeah,
You look astute. You sound astute. You're just an astute guy. I'm here
I
for
try. Also, can I
it.
just mention it is the day before fall, and it is 95 degrees in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is complete and utter bullcrap. Now, tomorrow the high is 68, so welcome to the Midwest, but it's hot.
Yeah, that's what they're saying here. We've got 2 straight days of the 90s, and then it's truly fall for at least a few days after that. I'm sure we'll get another wave, but so it goes. Before we go too much further, Joe, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button or gently caress the subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio version, subscribe to that bad boy as well, so the almighty algorithm will push our sultry voices out to the masses. We are everywhere you can find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Pods, Amazon Music, Audible, and apparently iHeartRadio, because I guess that's still a thing. And one more thing, the show would not be possible without the support of our Patreon family. And if you would like to go a little deeper and help keep this ship afloat, maybe get a couple dope rewards in the process, why not join us over there? Just go to patreon.com/riverfrontcincy or click the link in the show notes, and let's jump right into it. Week 2 stunk, Joe. It was not fun. The beloved Cincinnati Bengals lost to the stupid Dallas Cowboys. The final margin coming on a field goal, 20-17 field goal in the final moments there. And yeah, after having a few days to process it, how you feeling, man?
It's kind of a similar thing as the Pittsburgh game. I mean, it was one where the offense started slowly. They took care of the ball at least, so there's improvement there. Defense started a little bit slowly. I mean, then after the first quarter, I mean, defense gave up 2 field goals the rest of the game, but it's a process. If you actually look at Joe Burrow's history, even last year, even his rookie year, he's an incredibly slow starter. That needs to get fixed. Since they're not able to go, to push the ball down the field, he needs to be able to get firing a lot faster. So,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I found a stat that said, let me find it real quick. On the first 2 drives of the game, in 6 of the last 17 games, 35% of Joe Burrow's games, no first half touchdowns. Obviously, that's been a theme these first 2 weeks, and I don't know how you fix that. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know how someone becomes a slow starter, but it's becoming a problem, especially if you're going to be playing from behind, and that line's not going to do what it's supposed to do. So that's going to be something that we watch out going forward. Let's just get into the O-line right away. How are you feeling about their performance in week 2 versus week 1?
Similarly to last week, you actually look at the numbers. Cordell Volson actually had a great game pass blocking. His we use PFF here because I think it's the best objective way to look at pass blocking, because there's no or blocking in general, because there's no actual stats to compare. He had an 86.7 pass blocking grade, which is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. So I mean, his run blocking wasn't great, but it was better. So something to point. I mean, he's a rookie; he's going to get better and better. Ted Karras is, I believe, the 6th rated center in the entire league.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Kappa has been fine. He's somewhere in the middle of the pack. So the interior of the line has been. It looks like it's starting to come together. It's the tackles that absolutely killed them last week. Jonah Williams, a couple plays. Micah Parsons absolutely put him on skates, just pushed him back like 10 yards. Lyle Collins looked like an absolute turnstile. There were a couple plays. He had his back. He spun around to the left, or he spun around to the right, and Parsons just went right off his other shoulder, completely whiffed on him. There was another play. Parsons came completely unblocked. I'm not sure how that's allowed to happen.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, there were 3 players blocking one guy. Now I know they Dallas put up faked a lot of pressure on the inside and then dropped out of it, but you had Karras, Kappa, and Collins with one defender being blocked. So they need to figure out, again, do they, they need to run just jumbo package or run, keep an extra tight end just to block? I don't know. Something needs to happen because those two guys right now are what's killing the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to, hang anybody out to dry for getting beat by Micah Parsons. I thought the interior really did a good job. They didn't line him up there too often because he wasn't having much of an effect. Jonah Williams, to me, it seems like he does his job about 90% of the time, and then he has just 2 or 3 disaster plays. So if he can clean that up a little bit, I mean, he has made progress throughout his career. There's some reason for optimism, but it's not been great so far. And La'el Collins, man, I overheard a stat saying that he fell down on over 50% of his snaps. Just fell down that seems like a bold strategy. I don't know what you're doing there. One analyst said about the offense that they were flawed, inconsistent, and unproductive. And I would say, yeah, that just about covers it.
I mean, those are 3 words that you really want to have describe your offensive line: flawed, inconsistent. Yeah, that's, again, it's something that I think it's going to get ironed out. I'm not long-term concerned. Now, if they were to pull one of these 2 games, the first 2 games out, I'd be feeling a lot better. But it's something that's gonna, it's gonna get better as the season comes on. It's gonna gel, but they needed to gel before they get in too big of a hole. You're not gonna face T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, and Micah Parsons every week, but every team has a great pass rusher. Every team has situational pass rushers. So even though you're not facing the top of the line guys, you're going to be facing. You still need to be able to shore that up, especially on the tackles. It's one thing if Burrow gets pressure in his face, he can bounce out to the outside. He's great getting to the outside and making plays happen. But if he's being hemmed in, if the tackles are getting beat and pressure is just coming in for, then he's got nowhere to go. So,
yeah, that's exactly right. And, we'll see when it starts being a bigger deal. Because, I mean, they're fortunate right now. So talking about the AFC North standings, the 3 teams above them are 1-1. The Bengals are, of course, 0-2. They're fortunate to only be a game back, I think. There's a couple epic collapses in the AFC North last week. So the Browns are going to brown, and I just don't want the Bengals to bangle. So we'll see what happens. If they're still right in the thick of things right now. There's no reason to be terrified. There's reasons to be worried. There's reasons to be concerned, but we don't need to call for anybody's heads just yet. Though if they lose next week to the New York Jets, then I think somebody's going to have to answer for it. We'll get into that a little bit more here.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that it's going to be a lot that has to be answered for if they can't if they don't pull it out this week. One other thing about the sacks: all 6 sacks took at least 2.9 seconds. Not all sacks are equal. Some he had pressure immediately and tried to escape, and then just got hemmed in. But there were several of them to where he had 3 seconds. It was second sack of the game. It was on the second drive. He had 3 seconds before pressure got on him. Sample was left on the defensive end, and even though he got walked back into his face, he had 2 receivers over the middle. He had Mixon on an outlet. He's looking too long. He's looking too deep too often. And what's frustrating, teams are playing a lot of cover 2 or Tampa 2 defense against them. That's been around since late 90s, 25 years. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this is this brand new exotic defense. They knew that's what they were going to face coming into this season. That was a lot of the talk, is teams are going to play cover 2 to try to, keep you from going deep on you. Where's the, again, I don't know if it's play calling, because you look at some of these plays, you look at the tape on the all 22, there are guys open underneath. Now the vulnerable spots are, especially in that defense, is kind of the intermediate 10 to 20 yard window, which takes a little bit longer, but that's where Burrow is literally the best in the league with his accuracy. 2 to 3 seconds is plenty of time for a receiver to get 10, 15 yards downfield and to find a window in his zone. Again, everybody throws everything on Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan on the play calling. I don't know if it's really the case. I mean, you have 4 or 5 receivers going out. They're not all running vertical routes down, running down the seam, running fades or anything. There's crossers. There's stuff open underneath. It's Burrow needs to look, I don't know. Like, you can't see his eyes on every play to see if he's just looking, or the window isn't there, so he quickly switches or whatever. But something needs to happen. He needs to, if it's just look for the underneath route first or whatever. But a lot of this is on him. Now, he's smart enough, he's talented enough to fix it, but fix it.
Yeah, you're right. I was going to bring this up later, but let's just dive right into it. Is it time to worry about Joe Burrow? One of the things that's really concerning to me is that his clean pocket grade has gone from a 95.9 last year to 72.1. So he has not been performing when he does have time. In total this season, he's made 0 big-time throws and 5 what PFF calls turnover-worthy plays. Kevin Cole over there shared a graph showing the team's expected sacks based on protection and scheme. Burrow is -5. So just based on how his offensive line plays and his blocking and the plays they're running, the scheme that the team is deploying, he's had 5 more sacks than he should have. He's not doing himself any favors when he does have a pocket to work with. The guy had an appendectomy. There are things you can point to. He looks like he's seeing ghosts back there. I don't know what it is. Last year, it seems like whenever they needed to get something going, he would hit his receivers on these little slants that almost effectively worked as run plays. You hit them 2 or 3 yards downfield when they're in full stride, moving quickly, and allows them to get those yards after catch that they were so good at. That's not happening this year either. I don't know what it is. I think you have to lay some of the blame, at least, on the play calls, if not everything. But are you worried yet about Joe Burrow?
Not really, because these are 2 games is a small sample size. There are 2 games that they got in a big hole, and he let them back and had them in a position to possibly win. I mean, they had the ball in a tie game last week with a chance to go ahead. Now they went 3 and out, but they had it. They should have won on 2 different occasions. Game 1 against Pittsburgh, the extra point, and then the field goal. So it's not as if it's it's not if he's out there and just being terrible the entire game. It's just he's not who he was last year. And this, I'm confident saying that this isn't who he is. He's just the team is struggling. The team is out of sync, and they're going to find some. They're going to find some way to get everything kind of meshed and get some flow of the offense, because right now it's not there. But say what you want about Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan. These guys are paid professionals. This is what they do for a living. They're going to figure something out. Is it going to be the same offense that last year was? Probably not. But there's too much talent at every possible position skill position on the field for them to continue to struggle. So I'm confident, but frustrated.
Well, I sure hope you're correct. If they have another misstep in week 3, then something's going to have to happen. Back to the offensive line, 13 sacks through 2 games. Obviously, not ideal. Brian Callahan said about La'el Collins, and I quote, "needs to be more dialed in." That's not good.
He seems out of shape. Again, he had back issues, so that held him up in his own ramp up to camp, and then he missed several weeks of camp. The only time he really faced any full speed action with the practices against the Rams. I mean, he didn't even face any 11-on-11 when the team was working. Everyone tries to say that they should have run these guys in preseason games, but guys were, the 2 of the offensive linemen were coming off of injuries, and Burrow was coming off the injury, so I don't think that would have done anything. Yeah, his pass blocking grade last week was absolutely awful. This was in my 3 up, 3 down segment, but he 27.3 pass blocking, which is below pathetic. I mean, that's, if you do that for, if you're averaging that for 2 or 3 weeks, you're finding a new job. I mean, you're not getting benched, you're getting cut and getting replaced. Again, this isn't who he is. He's always been a stronger run blocker than a pass blocker, and his run blocking grade was strong, but he's, something needs to get fixed, and I think it will get better. I don't think he's going to be elite, but you get a passable, middle of the pack pass protection there, and you'll be fine in the long run.
Right. There were some people saying that these might have been the 2 worst games of his career. So if you're looking for optimism. It's only going to get better. And they need to take pride in protecting their quarterback. So I think nobody's more aware than they are. And we'll see better things this coming week. So you mentioned your 3 up, 3 down. This is a little segment we do where we identify 3 players who underperformed based on expectations and 3 that overperformed. You just mentioned Lyle Collins. We talked a little bit about your next guy, Jonah Williams. Is there anything else you want to add about him?
Yeah, for his poor pass blocking as he was last week, he was actually worse run blocking. Just a handful of plays, and I didn't. They don't run outside the tackles much as a scheme, but anything going to that side of the line just didn't net any yards. 37.9 run blocking grade. So I mean, he's just getting defeated at the point of attack. So you can't get. If you can get your linemen out to the linebackers or out to the second level, then Mixon's either having to make a cut in the hole or making to have a cut before he hits the hole, or he's just barely getting past the line of scrimmage before he's facing getting the second layer defense. So,
yeah, I mean that we can just beat this horse until it dies even more, I guess. But these guys just have to do better. Nobody's expecting the world out of them. We just need decency. Just be solid and keep Joe Burrow upright. Who's your third guy, the third on your 3 down list that underperformed last week?
Everyone's favorite whipping boy from last year, Eli Apple. He was really bad in coverage. Grade reflected that. We were kind of joking about the wide receivers for the Cowboys that no one knows. Well, Noah Brown made a huge name for himself last week because he just kept beating Eli Apple over the middle and beating him off the line to get wide open. I mean, he had several times like that. All you had to do was look for number 20, and 5 yards past him is where you're going to have an open receiver. He got called for a holding penalty on a key down. He just had an absolutely poor game, and it cost them. Those first 2 drives, especially when for the defense got settled in, he just time after time. This is when you wish Cam Taylor-Britt were healthy to be able to push him. Also, and I wanted to touch on this earlier, I hadn't got around to it. Dax Hill was in for a grand total of 2 snaps last week after being in for 6 snaps on the previous week. They made such a huge deal talking about his versatility. And he's going to be he's going to be a 12th starter on defense. And they were so hush-hush and quiet about what his role was going to be in the game plans, make it sound like he's going to be used as this absolute weapon on defense. They're not putting him in the field. And when you've got a cornerback who's been absolutely just poor over 2 weeks, and you've got a safety who can play cornerback, he move him over, move him in the slot and put Hilton on the outside if need be, or he can cover anywhere. Why is he not getting used? It's frustrating. I didn't really hear any. We're recording pretty early on Wednesday, so Zach Taylor's Wednesday press conference isn't out yet. But no one really asked anything on Monday. I didn't hear anything after in post game comments about why Dax Hill hasn't been on the field yet. But something needs to happen because Awuzie has been doing really good on the one side, but again, you have a cornerback who's just leaving guys open everywhere. Makes an easy target. So,
yeah, and somebody's asked that question. You're told all offseason, all training camp, this guy's got what it takes, and it's one thing if the guys who he would be playing in place of, or at least relieving, were doing well or even adequately. Eli Apple is currently ranked as the 81st cornerback by PFF. That's pretty bad. I'm no scientist, but it's not good. But enough negativity, Joe. Let's get some positivity. We have our 3 up next. We touched on this guy a little bit earlier, Cordell Volson. What a jump he made from week 1 to week 2. He was easily a whipping boy after that game against the Steelers, but he looked really, really solid last week. You hope he's some of that stuff from the guys beside him that are playing so well is rubbing off. What did you see out of Cordell?
Well, first off, it helps when you're not facing a first ballot Hall of Famer and Cam Hayward. But yeah, I mean, he did a fantastic job on pass blocking, and this is what you're going to get with a rookie. You're hoping that I mean, every week the skill, it's not going to be even. It's not like every week, pass blocking and run blocking are going to be just as good as week 4. But you just hope every week by week by week it's more consistent. It's going to be Just something that's reliable. And that's what this team needs is reliable, whether it's great, whether it's good, whether it's average. It's knowing what you're going to get. And again, I think he's going to get there. He run blocking was still work in progress this week, but he had a very good game considering they gave up 6 sacks and had a lot of pressure. So.
Yeah, speaking of people that had a really good game, once again, DJ Reader, number 2 on our 3-up. The guy is maybe the best at his position to never make a Pro Bowl. If that's correct. I feel like I read that somewhere.
Correct.
If that is true, I do not think that will be the case after this season, especially if he keeps playing the way he has. He's been lights out. What did you notice about DJ?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you said. But, I mean, again, you cannot run the ball into him on defense. One of the reasons he's not going to make a Pro Bowl is because he's not going to get a ton of tackles. He's a space eater. He's going to take on the guard and the center and leave it for the end, to come off for the linebacker to clean up on the play. He was great on pass rush as well. There was the one play where Sam Hubbard got a sack. He absolutely pushed the, I believe it was the guard, the guard of the center, right into Rush's face, gave him no chance to get rid of the ball early, and Hubbard scraped around and cleaned up for a sack. You're not going to find anybody in the entire league who's as strong as him. He's 6'4", 347 pounds, and you look at the guy, and he doesn't look fat. Like, yeah, obviously he's, a little beefier than the average guy, but I mean, he's for a huge run stopper, he's pretty lean, all things considered.
Yeah, he's not the average guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's not going to get a ton of sacks. He's not going to get a ton of tackles. He's going to push the pocket, or he's going to contain these blockers to let the next guys clean up the play, and that's what you're seeing. So he's fantastic at what he does. Absolutely.
Yeah, as a 5th round draft pick, you can't expect much more than that. You dropped this guy's name, talking about our number 3 gentleman, Sam Hubbard.
Pride of Cincinnati Moeller High School. He was all over the field. He should have had a pick. There was one that kind of right off his hands. He's dropped into coverage. The very next play is actually when he had his sack. He chased down a couple runs, a couple other pressures. Again, just 100% effort, what you expect from him. He's a guy that just he has one speed. He just had a very good all-around game and kind of what you expect. Nothing flashy, but just he's a guy that you know what you're going to get, and he's going to play his ass off. So,
yeah, handsome gentleman too. Looking at his PFF photo, like that about him. We like the lookers around here at the riverfront. So yeah, I'm glad to end with a little bit of positivity after these first 2 weeks, which have not brought us much to get excited about. Let's do some quick housekeeping before we go on. Injury updates. Drew Sample left the game early. Probably would have learned much more in today's pressers, but because I've got some stuff going on, I had to bump up the timeline for this. Is there any injury news, injury updates that you feel like sharing?
No, not at this time. I mean, he was the only one that had any notable injury coming out of the game. I think any news that you're going to hear about him it's going to be a long-term thing. If you saw the injury, he got his leg just kind of caught up underneath him. Either it's an ankle or a knee or a leg. If he comes back at any point this year, I'll be surprised. He had the knee injury in training camp, and this looked pretty gnarly if you saw the replay. So I wouldn't expect to see him at least until December, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets put on season-ending IR. But again, there was nothing in Monday's comments and nothing anywhere about his status. So
yeah, you hate to see it, and I unfortunately suspect that you are correct. Don't go back and watch the replay. There's no point in that. Just get well soon, Drew. We'll be rooting for a quick recovery over here and all around Cincinnati. So yeah, other news of the week. They announced some Pro Football Hall of Fame nominees for 2023. There were a couple familiar names and faces on there. It looks like former Bengals Willie Anderson, Chad Johnson, Corey Dillon, Takeo Spikes, and Justin Smith were among those nominated. Of that crew, who would you most like to see make the, get the call? And who do you expect, if anyone?
I expect Justin Smith. He was fine as a Bengal. He went to San Francisco and absolutely dominated. I believe there was a year where he was all-pro defensive end and defensive tackle, which one player filling 2 spots on the all-pro team is pretty amazing. Willie Anderson, I hope he gets in. He's very deserving. He's another player that's just because he's a Bengal, he's not getting the recognition that he deserves. But he absolutely, I mean, he was the best right tackle in the game the entire time he was on the team. You look at numbers, Chad Johnson should be there. Ocho Cinco. Is he Johnson or Ocho Cinco? He's changed his name back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, it's a good question. Let's just call him Ocho Cinco because we don't want to step on anybody's toes. Nobody's mad about that.
We don't offend here. We're people pleasers. But yeah, Chad and Dylan both have numbers that are in line. They're not slam dunks, but you think they're guys that are maybe down the road. And especially if the dam breaks and more Bengals start getting into the Hall of Fame, they'll realize, these guys actually were pretty deserving too. It helps that Dylan went to New England and got a ring and had a really good season when he was on the Patriots. So Takeo Spikes, good player, but not great, and he'll quickly fall off
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree across the board. I think that Ocho Cinco has a good chance just because he also had an impact that extended beyond Cincinnati. Everyone league-wide knew about Chad Ocho Cinco, sometimes for good things, sometimes less than so, but he sort of redeemed himself in the eyes of a lot of people, in my opinion. Takeo Spikes, outside looking in, and going to stay that way, but he can take solace in the fact that he has a Hall of Fame football name. I'm thinking about naming my first child Takeo Spikes Dotson. I don't know if you did the same with your son or daughter.
That's his Takeo's his middle name.
Okay.
So
you can't blame me. Nobody wants to be looking at the high school scouting report and be like, who are you matching up with next week? Oh, Takeo Spikes. I just quit. Done.
I got a hamstring injury. Things ended on a not so great note with him here in Cincinnati, so he's not exactly well revered. Things didn't end up great with Dylan, but he was at least, set all kinds of records while he was here. So, yeah, not a lot of people shedding tears if Spikes doesn't make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, we'll be keeping our eyes on that. We love rooting for things, all the things at any time, especially if they involve the Bengals. So, week 3 coming up. The Bengals are playing at the New York Jets, the Jet Republicans. Bengals are currently 4.5-point road favorites. And I don't know, man, if you don't win, if you go 0-3, losing to Mitch Trubisky, Cooper Rush, and Joe Flacco, we've got problems. Do yourself no favors and go look up side-by-side stats with Burrow and Joe Flacco right now, because I think he might have found that rabbit hood he found in Super Bowl season in Baltimore. But I don't know, man. What do you see going into this game? What are some of your keys for the Bengals to win, other than obviously improve offensive line play?
Yeah, it's more consistency. It's try to match the first half play with the second half play, because they've been a much better and much more even team the second half. One of the units needs to get off to a fast start, either the offense or the defense. Defense in game 1, they were fine. They were absolutely boxed in by all the turnovers and short fields. Last week they gave up 2 long touchdown drives, and then they were dominant from then on. But they need to, I don't say pitch a shutout, but hold them to a touchdown, hold them to a couple field goals in the first half. And that way, if the offense comes out on another slow start, then they're at least, you're not 2 touchdowns down. So
yeah,
that's definitely the first key right there. Turnovers would be a fantastic thing. They have now 1 turnover in 2 games. They had their hands on a lot of balls last week. Was one of those games to where you flip a coin and they've got 3 they've got 3 interceptions on top of the fumble, but they need to turn them over. If they turn them over twice, I think they're in great position. The third key of the game is to score more points than the Jets. I think if you do that, every team that has ever outscored their opposition, they've won every game, undefeated, the entire history of football.
Then why don't more teams just do that?
I really think that should be the goal of every team going into the game: outscore your opponent. Things will fall in line after that.
I love it. A couple other things that I think we should keep an eye on for that game. The Jets have some young receivers that are playing really, really well. Everybody thought Elijah Moore was going to have a big season, but it's been rookie first-round draft pick Garrett Wilson that's been lighting them up. Our defensive backs have not looked very great. I haven't heard much from Jesse Bates. I love it when a player bets on himself and wins. I would like to see him do a little more winning. Joe Flacco, he can barely move. So getting a little bit of pressure on him. There's not been enough pressure. I would love to see more out of Trey Hendrickson. He is better than his stat line would currently show. He's been steady, but I need him to just beat his man a little more often and get that pressure. Other than that, I don't know. You have to just not get too down on yourself. I think that this this Bengals team is probably still pretty confident, and I think they should be. They will be favorited in most matchups during this game.
For sure.
So,
and one thing, Joe Flacco, 20 games versus the Bengals, longtime Ravens quarterback. He is only 9-11, 60% completion percentage, more interceptions than touchdowns. So the Bengals have a habit of playing him really, really well. He's got 21 touchdowns, 25 picks. Their defense, the Jets defense, has given up a lot of rushing yards. Looks like 123 yards per game. You'd hope that this is a game that Mixon and P. Ryan can get the ball moving. Again, you got to hold the edges against them. Bengals fans remember Carl Lawson. He never gets a ton of sacks. He's always there in the quarterback's face, and this is a game to where all those pressures would turn into sacks since the tackles have been turnstiles. But again, hold up against him. I think if they can hold him in check, I think the Bengals are in a good spot.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff is going to have a lot of pressure to come up with a good game plan for this one. You've seen other teams execute their game plan to perfection. I would like to see that happen for the team that we're rooting for. I think some of the things that they might try to key on are, they only used play action on 13.7% of dropbacks, which is the fifth lowest in the NFL. We've talked about it here that Burrow doesn't necessarily love play action, but you might want to see a little more of it. Taylor, some of his coaching decisions have been a bit frustrating, to say the least. Not going for it on fourth down with one of the best kickers in the entire NFL. I don't know if you're paying attention if you watch the whole game, but 3 points kind of mattered in the end. They would have been good to have. So just a little more. I mean, what was the quote that Tyler Boyd had? I have it written down here. 1 second. Oh, he said in his post-game interview, we had to change up our whole game plan because of how they were playing us. Yeah, that's coaching.
Yeah,
that's what you have to do. I don't like that he kind of sounds surprised if that was something that they're willing to try. I know that you have mentioned that Zach Taylor can be stubborn to a fault sometimes.
Yeah.
I think you've seen a lot of that out of some high-profile coaches too. Mike Tomlin is very much that way.
Yeah.
He has his game plan and he'll stick with it for 4 quarters. But that's not how the best coaches get it done. And if they go 0-3, then somebody has to be on the hot seat. The GM is not trying to be that guy, so he will pass that on down. The head coach is going to try to blame it on everybody.
Well, the GM's the owner, so that's definitely – he's not going anywhere.
He can't fire himself?
He can. I don't exactly see that happening. Zach Taylor's not going anywhere. Unless they've got a disastrous 2-15 or something silly. He just signed an extension and they're not eating that money. I could see coordinator Brian Callahan, most notably if the offense performance doesn't get better. One thing of note though, in game 1, they only threw the ball from under center twice. Last week they were a lot more balanced. They're still more run heavy. I mean, you still expect to run when he's under center, but they at least added a lot more passes, so it wasn't, you're not absolutely just telegraphing that it's going to be a run. So they did fix that and have a more realistic split. So, but again, this is, at what point are you going to stop having to adjust your game plan and come out with make the other team adjust to you?
Right.
That's how the team was last year. The team came out and teams adjusted to them. Well, okay, now it's your turn. Instead of having to just, play off your back heel and play from behind, make the big adjustment, make teams have to adjust to your next thing. I mean, you have the ability. You've got receivers that can run any route. Like, they don't all have to be vertical down the field. You have versatile running backs. You have a tight end that can, that's athletic. Figure out a game plan that they have to game plan against, as opposed to having to, be on your back foot.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the longest play of week 2 is 19 yards. They're going to need to find some way to open up those sort of explosive plays. And you talked about it. They're going to run too high at Tampa 2. That cover 2 that works so well against elite quarterbacks that love going deep. So there's only one way to open that up, really. You got to be effective down low. and the Bengals certainly have the weapons to do that. They are currently 30th in the NFL, 4.3 yards per game. So it just seems to me that the problems that they have right now are all identifiable and fixable.
Yeah.
And it's just up to the coaching staff and a little bit of execution. And they had teams last year. We were ready to burn the city down after a loss to the Bears, and they've proven that they can bounce back. They can recover from tough losses. If you are looking for a sunny side up, it's that they are 2 play calls away from being 2-0 right now. The other side of that coin is that they are 0-2, and they lost to 2 of potentially the worst teams that they are going to play this season.
Yeah.
So we are going to go into this next week with nothing but unbridled optimism. And, it's happened time and time again over the decades that the New York Jets are good for what ails you. So let's hope that's what we have this time. What are your final thoughts going into Jets week?
I want them to be creative in terms of, even if it's trick plays, just, double reverse pass, end around, something. There's been none of that. There was, in the Super Bowl, Joe Mixon halfback pass, throws a touchdown pass to T. Higgins. Something like that, just to get, just to change up, give him something to think about. And that's what I'm expecting to see something. I don't, I'm not going to say it's going to be, a flea flicker or anything like that, but there'll be some kind of creativity just to kind of get them on their heels, just to give them something to think about. So, again, it's time to play with some urgency. Come out, play with your, with your ass on fire, and come out and take the fight to them. Don't be passive. Don't, take a deep shot instead of just checking down. If you're waiting for the deep pass, then just throw it. Just stretch them a little longer. Gain you a couple yards underneath.
Maybe get a pass interference call.
Yeah, exactly. I only saw, I think, 2 passes last week that were actually deep shots. That they're just not even taking. Yeah, they're not there. That's fine. Just throw it. Just fire it. And again, you need the time to do that. But
sure.
So I am seeing the Bengals winning, though. I'm tired of predicting them winning and not coming ahead, but I got them 21-17. I've got Chase actually scoring on a long touchdown pass. They're gonna, dam's gonna break. I think they're gonna have a good, not great game. Just offense is gonna look a lot better. Defense is, again, you're playing Joe Flacco. He's the 3rd rated quarterback so far through 2 games, but it's Joe Flacco. It's not Joe Flacco in his prime wasn't the 3rd best quarterback. He was barely the 3rd best quarterback in the division. He's going to come down to earth. They're going to. Last year they came and they went in the Meadowlands and got beaten. I don't see it happening this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, like you said, I'm going to pick the Bengals to win. I've been predicting these close ones, so maybe some of these losses are on me. I've been expecting them to be too close, so I'm going to go the other way with this. And Cincinnati is going to win 28-13, and it's going to be a dominant 4-quarter performance. They're going to start hot. They're going to stay there. Joe Mixon's going to close it out in the end, and we're going to see a little bit of Chris Evans just for my wild card pick, because we heard a lot about that guy in the offseason too, and I would love to see some of that action. So, let's before we wrap up here, Joe, let's get into our weekly pick'em. What we do here, y'all, is we play against each other. We play against some listeners. Whoever finishes the highest of the listeners is going to get some free swag from us at the end of the year. We will just quickly go through game by game and give some quick thoughts on who we think is going to win each. Currently, after 2 weeks, Joe and I are tied at 17-13. There was a tie in there. We're not going to count those. Joe went 9-7 last week. I had to do a dominant performance, just dropped it on the table, going 10-6. But it's a new week, and each week brings me a chance to lose hilariously. So let's just run through these real quick. Maybe just add 1 or 2 things that you think about the game, why you chose who you chose, and we'll just rapid fire these. First game, Pittsburgh at Cleveland. It's a Thursday night matchup. Who you got?
I got Cleveland, dominant defensive line with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. I think that they're going to live in the backfield all game long. We know what the Steelers can do on defense or on offense, and it's not much. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, 17-13. I say that, and it'll be 58-55. But, I got Cleveland coming out ahead in this one.
Yeah, still no T.J. Watt. I think I'm probably going to pick Pittsburgh to lose just about every game for the rest of their season, at least while Mitchell Trubisky is their starting quarterback. Up next, Baltimore at New England. This has the makings of, for a long time, this would be a pretty high-profile matchup. I went Baltimore simply because I think New England is kind of up there with Pittsburgh in teams that just have too many questions that need answering and are no fun to watch whatsoever. Who do you got?
I Sam, I went with Baltimore as well. Lamar Jackson's been great so far this year.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about
New
players
England,
that bet on themselves and are winning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's going to get a huge contract after the season. I just don't. Yeah, they came back and beat Pittsburgh last week, but I don't buy anything that New England's selling. They're okay on defense and they're absolutely mediocre on offense. So,
yeah, couldn't agree more. Obviously, we agree on Cincinnati over the Jets. We disagree on this next one, Detroit at Minnesota. Joe, you went Minnesota. Why?
They're the better team.
Well,
easy. Home. They're playing at home. They still have all the weapons. I know Justin Jefferson got shut down. He's going to have a big game come back this week. Detroit is much improved. I like a lot of the guys on their roster. They're not there yet. They still have Jared Goff as quarterback. So Minnesota at home, I'll take them.
I went with Detroit just because it's early in the season. I don't think I would have done that later in the year. I like the plucky upstart full of confidence, sort of irrational confidence teams. Right now they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown just playing out of his mind. Goff is being Goff, which is perfectly adequate. And I think that Kirk Cousins in a potentially high-profile game is probably just going to blow it. So it's our first disagreement, of which there will be many, including this next one. Houston at Chicago. For very similar reasons, I went with Houston on this one. I think that they are just slightly better than people give them credit for. They at least are plucky. They're going to try hard. And I think that Chicago's up there with Pittsburgh and New England as one of those complete dumpster fire teams.
Yeah, I mean, I went with Chicago just because this is like last week had so many matchups of crappy teams. This is another matchup of absolute just crappy teams. You got to pick somebody, so I went with Chicago. I'm hoping. I have a soft spot for the Bears for some reason. I don't know why. They're not playing the Packers, so they've got a much better chance of winning anytime they're not playing. Anytime they're not playing Aaron Rodgers. I've got them winning, going to 2-1. So.
Yeah, that is a fact. We do have to pick somebody. And if you are playing along with us, email your picks to team@riverfrontcincy.com. And you too will have to pick someone. If you're gambling, you don't have to pick a game. And I would recommend leaving that one alone. It is gross.
Yeah.
Next up, Kansas City at Indianapolis. Kansas City, no brainer. They are just far, far, far superior. We could spend 30 minutes talking about all of the ways that they're better than Indianapolis. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, Indianapolis is an absolute dumpster fire right now. Everyone thought that they're bringing Matt Ryan and they were getting a much better quarterback than Carson Wentz. That's not happening. Carson Wentz has been pretty good over the first two games, and Matt Ryan has looked like an old quarterback, which is what he is. So,
yeah, players that I do not enjoy having to root for, Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz. So Patrick Mahomes, I think you're going to do just fine. Next up could be a little more fun, at least a little more tight. The Las Vegas Raiders at Tennessee Titans. I went with Las Vegas because I think the Titans are trash, to put it lightly. I think Derrick Henry looks a little washed. I think that Ryan Tannehill is an average to below average NFL quarterback. And I think that the Raiders are great skill players, and Derek Carr is not looked good the first 2 weeks, but he's due for a good game. So I got the Raiders. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, similar reasons. It's weird. It's almost as if trading away your best wide receiver when you're not a very good passing team to begin with isn't a good option. And the Tennessee's finding that out to try to trade away A.J. Brown. Ryan Tannehill is a little less volatile Andy Dalton in his prime. Derrick Henry is old. The defense isn't very good. They've scored 27 points in 2 games. So I think Las Vegas is going to get right this week. They'll finally get off the schneid.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. Speaking of things that would not surprise me, this next game could go any way, any direction. New Orleans at Carolina. I picked Carolina just because your dog agrees or disagrees. I don't know. He can also make a cameo here, by the way. If he wants to make his first appearance, his or hers. Come on. But I went with Carolina just because, I don't know, Christian McCaffrey is good. And it's not a good thing when your starting teams, your starting quarterback is got 4 injured vertebrae. It just sounds like a bad thing, which is a situation with Jameis Winston. So I don't know. Toss up for me, but I went Carolina. How about you?
New Orleans has more talent across the board, so that's why I went with them. But yeah, that's apparently he's not in any risk of re-injuring or injuring himself worse. But yeah, having 4 fractured vertebrae, or I think they're all fractured. That sounds painful.
Yeah, doesn't sound good.
Yeah, there's not enough crab in the world for Jameis Winston to steal to make that feel better. So let's just we'll see.
I don't know.
But I still think they're much better.
Legs, see what happens. All right, next up we have the Philadelphia Eagles at Wanderskins, and I am going with the Eagles because I think that the Eagles are plenty good this year, and I think the Commanders are plenty bad. Plus, one of my favorite things in sports is rooting against Dan Snyder.
Yeah, anytime you can hope ill will on Dan Snyder is a good thing. I think the Commanders are a decent team. Eagles have looked absolutely dominant. Jalen Hurts looks like he got replaced with Randall Cunningham playing back there. But yeah, they look fantastic. So until proven otherwise, they're hard to choose against them right now.
Yeah, especially against Carson Wentz, who looked okay the first 2 weeks, but I'm not putting my money on that. Next up, Jaguars at Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers. I actually struggled with this one. I am high on the Jaguars this year, as you and I have talked about plenty. They backed up my energy for them last week, looking really, really solid for 4 quarters. I think the East to West Coast trip is probably a little too much. I think that Justin Herbert is a top 2, definitely top 3 quarterback in the NFL. So give me the Chargers on that one. Who do you got?
Yeah, same thing. I thought you said you were high on the Jags. I thought you were high for being high on the Jags, but they're still not a good team. You're doing the Ayahuasca, whatever stuff that Aaron Rodgers is getting game prep for. They're still not a very good team. They're better than they were last year, but just because the stench of Urban Meyer is now washed out. Chargers are just a better team. Herbert's going to have a better game. He's not going to throw a 99-yard pick 6, so easy pick.
You heard it here first, guys. When the Jaguars make the Super Bowl, Joe and I will have an ayahuasca ceremony over Zoom. That is absolutely false. I don't know. I think you just locate a shaman on Craigslist and hope for the best. We will not be doing it. Nobody hold us to that, please. Next up, Atlanta at Seattle. Another crap fest. I went with Atlanta because Marcus Mariota is kind of fun to root for. I don't know. He can move and stuff. Both these teams are garbage. So I don't know. I had to pick one.
I'm picking Seattle because I want Marcus Mariota to fail because as a Bearcat fan, I want to see Desmond Ridder in the game. So outside, again, you're picking 2 crappy teams. Seattle is the better team. I mean, they've got as weird as it is to say that they have the better quarterback because they have Geno Smith, they have the better quarterback. So
yeah,
and they're at home in front of the 12th man. So
yeah, and that's fair too. Speaking of not speaking of anything, but kind of the opposite of that game is next. The Green Bay Packers at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams with at least high expectations this season. I went with Green Bay because we just talked about it. Ayahuasca is dope. I'm just kidding. I went with Green Bay because, I don't know, I feel like they just have less injuries. Aaron Jones is cooking right now, and Tom Brady looks like he forgot to eat anything in the offseason. It's just throwing iPads around for some reason. His home life is seemingly not great. We wish him luck with that. But I don't know, too much turmoil right now in Tampa Bay. Mike Evans is going to miss this one too after getting into a fight. So I'm just going to go with the Packers and their stability.
Yeah, he looks terrible. Like it looks like he just got off the set of reprising Tom Hanks' role in Philadelphia,
which is a weird thing to say about one of the most handsome men who's ever lived.
Yeah, I mean, he looks sickly. I mean, face is sunken in. Like you don't want to say something's wrong, but man, he looks bad.
He needs to get on that TB12 program I've heard so much about.
I know a guy who pushes that stuff. Or maybe just actually eat real food for once and get some calories in your system. That might be helpful too.
That can do.
I've got Tampa Bay. It's only because they're at home. Green Bay's kind of looked uneven. They're 1-1. They're still a good team. They've got a great defense. Rodgers still doesn't have anyone reliable to throw the ball to. But, so that's kind of the reason why I'm picking the home Buccaneers. So,
yeah, totally fair. I can see that one going either way, too. I cannot see this next one going either way. The Los Angeles Rams at Arizona Cardinals. We both went with the Rams. I still think that the Cardinals are going to be one of the most disappointing teams in the league this year. I think that they are horribly coached. I think that their quarterback doesn't seem like he really enjoys playing quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals very much, which is not something you want to see. And the Rams at least have a Super Bowl pedigree. So we'll see. I guess it wouldn't blow my mind if the Cardinals won, but I am not expecting it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I almost thought about picking Arizona on this one, except for Rondale Moore's got an injury. I see it being a close game. I think Rams right now are given 3.5. I think it'll actually be closer than that. But you got the Super Bowl champs, so
yep,
no reason to really think otherwise. So,
yeah, and a definite coaching advantage. Next to last, we have the San Francisco 49ers at Denver Broncos. My heart was telling me Denver because it's a home game and a seemingly decent team, allegedly decent team, I should say. But San Francisco's got a little mojo right now. Trey Lance goes out for the year. You hate to see that. Get well soon. But Jimmy Garoppolo, who is beloved by the city and beloved in that locker room, is under center. I think they've just got a little bit more momentum right now. You went Denver. Why am I wrong?
Because you chose opposite of me. That's why.
Oh.
No. No, again, Jimmy Garoppolo is who he is. He's a decent quarterback. And for them to win this year, he's the better option than Trey Lance. Not that they wanted to go that way, but Denver's just a better team. They're better on offense. So they've got more talent on offense. It's going to be hard to. Teams still struggle to play in the high altitude. So I'm going with Russ Wilson and Bronco Country. Let's ride. Please tell me you've seen that. I know we talked about that last episode. Have you seen
terrible.
That? It's hilarious and terrible.
I know nobody wants to hear about anybody else's fantasy teams, but I just sent a message. I have Russell Wilson in one league, and I sent out a group message saying 75 cents on the dollar. I just don't want this guy on my team anymore. If there's no bidders, I'll drop him, and you guys can find it out in the waiver wire. And I've got Jameis Winston and his vertebrae problems, and I had Dak Prescott. So I'm going to start Davis Mills just because I don't like Russell Wilson's face. That's how bad it's going over there. But let's ride. All right, last game of the week before we wrap this up, Dallas at New York Giants. I picked the New York Giants only because I couldn't pick both teams to lose.
You can pick a tie.
Can you pick the tie?
You can.
Nobody.
I don't see why we can't. We didn't make the rules.
You get booed in public for picking the tie.
It's a weak ass pick, but you can pick it. We saw how good Dallas's defense is. New York Giants aren't good. I think it's going to be kind of a 2-3 score game, 21-7, 24-3, something like that. So I can, in good conscience, pick the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's pretty much it. Joe, you have any final thoughts for us before we wrap this bad boy up?
Just get come out with fire and take the fight to the Jets instead of letting them punch first. So score more than the other team. Undefeated when that happens.
I love it. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and supporting the Riverfront Bengals show. The name is a work in progress. Has any good ideas? We are open to those. Please remember to subscribe to the show either on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are at Riverfront Cincy on all those platforms. And once again, a huge thank you to our supporters at patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy. The show, again, would not be possible without the support of that awesome family. And we'd love for you to join in on our hijinks. Just go to patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy or click the link in the show notes. And that's it for Joe Farsing and Takeo Spikes. This is Nate Dotson saying so long, everyone.